Can the Packers come back again? Did they get that playoff at the end of the third quarter? Mr. Logical says no.
I don't
It's
think
looking
so.
kind of shady. But you know what? Yes. You are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. Mr. Logical is here.
I was correct. They didn't
2-5
get
is
it
here.
off. They just showed the replay. They didn't get it off.
Dame Lillard isn't here,
Conspiracy against Detroit.
but he ain't in Portland no more. We're going to talk about the trade, our thoughts, what's going to happen going forward. Drew Holiday. And I saw betting odds. Milwaukee's now the favorite. Wow. We got week 4 off right now. 27-17 Detroit. 14:52 left in the game at Lambeau Field. We got picks. And then we're going to finish it off with a little college football. Who's on upset alert? Who's going to go down? But Mr. Logical said it's about to get better. Order another round because it's about to go down. What's happening, sir?
Listen, we got full-fledged sports going on. I want to shout out to all the people involved in making this Dame Lillard, Ayton, Nurkic, Grayson Allen trade. I was just kind of done with the pundits playing fantasy basketball with all these trade scenarios. I'm pretty sure there was better ones out there, or at least different ones and movements and different pieces. But certain, everybody wants to leave the table and any kind of like a business deal, as if they were up. But most likely it's like this. Every business deal you have, you're gonna leave the table a little bit disappointed. Or you didn't like there wasn't a good deal. More likely, if I'm trading Dame Lillard to Charlotte and I get their whole starting lineup, yeah, from Portland, I feel like I got a good deal. But the people in Charlotte not gonna feel the same way. So any kind of really, really good business deal, normally somebody has to compromise. I'm just shouting out the fact that they made this move mainly because you knew as Portland it wasn't gonna work. If Dame wasn't excited to get Scoot in there and you were gonna run this small guard, two-headed, you the one, I'm the two, you the one, I'm the two, I'm the two, you the one, whatever the case may be, back and forth. If they weren't gonna run that, then you might as well just go ahead and try to get as much as you can out of it. And I think they got a pretty solid deal. We all knew for years Aiton wasn't happening in Phoenix. So I think it's a good deal.
Hey, Jimmy Butler said the NBA need to do some investigations.
For tampering, I can't trust anybody with all them beads in their hair.
This. I like the
You make
deal.
poor decisions.
I like the deal. I like it for Milwaukee, obviously. They get Dame, because as Milwaukee was, in my mind at least, they were done as a contender. Like they were still going to be the second best team in the East, but that's just because there aren't a lot of good teams in the East. So
that doesn't make them a contender being the second team in the East. The way the East kind of played out.
But what I mean by that is
the championship contender.
Yeah, like they would have got to they could have gotten to the finals, but they aren't a team that I would have went in thinking like, oh, they got a chance, or like I just think that Milwaukee had hit their peak. Because I mean, we got to remember, I don't want to be that guy, but the championship that they did win, Kyrie got hurt, Harden got hurt, Kevin Durant's foot on the line. You got to have luck to win titles, but they dominated regular seasons. Like they go on these long winning streaks during the regular season, but they haven't put their stamp on a playoff run. So from that standpoint, Middleton's getting older. Drew's was getting older. They were, Middleton's been injured a lot recently. So Brook Lopez is 35. So, I just felt that they were at a point where Giannis is saying, y'all got to do something before I bounce. And I don't think he was just talking. I think he saw the writing on the wall, but now that they got Dame, they've added an extra 3 years potentially to a window now. Whereas with the Suns, when I look at the Suns, they got some depth. Like we all talked about, they got KD, they got Booker, they got Durant, and then they got to play 40 minutes a game. Like they still might have to play 38, but they got a few extra players. Grayson Allen, you always talk about it. You got to have the crazy dude on your team if you want to be a championship level team. He's the crazy dude. He'll trip you, he'll choke you, he'll kick you in the nuts, all kinds
break
of
your
stuff.
wrists.
All that stuff. Portland. I like it for Portland from the standpoint of, they had to get rid of Dame anyway, regardless if they wanted to or he wanted to, whatever the case may be. It was time. It's over. They got to the Western Conference Finals one year, and that was it. They got swept, because they didn't belong there anyway.
True.
But now, they got the 2029 first, and they got pick swaps in 2028 and 2030. So like that's a little ways away. But that's 3 to 4 years now that Scoot gets to develop, become maximum Scoot or whatever he's gonna become. Shaden Sharp is still there, young. He's gonna be a good player down the road. They still got Anthony Simons. So in the backcourt, they're set. And that's why the Tyler Hero thing didn't make sense, because they were just going to move him probably just like they're trying to move Drew Holiday now if they would have got him in the deal. And I don't know if he would have got back the return that Drew Holiday is potentially going to bring back.
If you were to trade him to a team that really wants to shoot threes, you think about like how Indiana can't seem to figure out how to keep Buddy Hield,
which I don't get.
I don't get it either, but maybe it's the fit thing. Maybe it's the fit. Maybe it's an attitude. Maybe it's just a delivered message like, yo, I don't want to play here. I don't like the way you guys run your offense. I don't want to play here. And it's like, okay, you got to go.
Well, they've been trying to trade Miles Turner for the last 4 years. But he's the new John Collins.
It's going to be the same kind of conversation. Like we'll get into the Drew Holiday trade. It's the same kind of conversation associated with James Harden. Having James Harden on your team, yes, you might not get the 2015, 16, 17, 18, 30 points, 50-point triple-double James Harden, introducing new moves to the NBA with the step back. Some of it was travels, is what it is. You might not get that version of James Harden, but you might have a viable player in James Harden. But if you're trying to trade, if Philly's trying to use, this is James Harden, is like, you need to give us X amount of players and all these other picks because we're paying him $36 million. We want all of this. And it's like, this is a James Harden that's given us 19 to 22 points in the regular season and somewhere around that area in the postseason. It's not the same James Harden as the guy that was giving you 31 and a half, 32 and a half in Houston in the playoff, in that regular season. So it might be the same kind of situation with all these players like Buddy Hield, Evan Turner, where GMs is like, listen, you want to stretch 4, you want to stretch 5, you want a 2 that can shoot, and they're asking for too much, and guys are just sitting stagnant, and they'd rather sit a guy on the bench and not play him. And I think that's what's going to happen with James, because you were talking about this offline. Philly, per some of these pundits and sources and quote unquote other sources may be, Philly might be in a running for Drew Holiday. Mm-hmm. And I presented the question to you, like, okay, if they get Drew Holiday, what are they going to do with James Harden? And you were like, well, Max is, because you had Drew Holiday coming off the bench, because in your mind, they would have run Maxey Harden, Drew off the bench. But it's like, who says Drew wants to come off the bench? And then on top of that, it's like,
or maybe it would have been reversed. Then maybe Maxey turns into like the Jamal Crawford dude.
Yeah, but Maxey's trying to get his first big check, because what happens, as far as what I know about the rudimentary knowledge that I have about NBA contracts, is that your first one sets the bar for your second one, because it's like timeline windows. And I could be off with the dates, but say you get drafted at 19, you get your first 3 years in the league, your first opportunity for that super max extension, a la what Jaylen Brown got. Well, Maxi might be in that window to get one of those contracts that Tobias Harris got, where you can get that 180, 200 million, somewhere in that range, that early Mike Conley contract.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be an all-star, shoot this many shots, be on the floor this many times, and hit all these other benchmarks to bolster your negotiation standpoint, your negotiation stance. But if you bring in a guy that can essentially do your job, and he can play point guard, and he has a chip, and he has evidence of him shutting down some of the better wing offensive players in your conference, it's going to be kind of tough. So I don't know
Including
if
Dame.
I don't know if it's going to be as I would think that Daryl Morey. I'm pretty sure he's a gambling man, and a lot of guys are smarter than me, and they get paid a lot of money to make these decisions. But ultimately, it's like, what am I going to do with James other than just either give him the contract he wants or someone's close to that? Because I don't know bringing in Drew Holiday is going to help that. Because you might be in a situation where you're John Wall and James Harden.
So
You
what's the
treat him
mark?
like Al
Okay,
Horford.
so now in theory, there would have to be a market out there. So we know the Clippers were interested in James Harden at one point. What other team can we pontificate about that?
Certificate. I like that. Let's mark that.
Yeah,
Calendar.
like who would
That would
take
want
James?
James.
Yeah, at this point, like right now, we're in training camp. Just about media day is next week. Like we're literally 4 weeks away from the season starting. So, like, what team out there has that need or want?
So if I matched it with a team versus like, who am I in the situation? Am I a GM trying to move James, or am I James trying to figure out my new team?
Either or, like you're a team that
If
sees
I'm
hard
James, if I'm
because
James,
if somebody wanted them, they would have them already.
if I'm James looking for my new team, and Drew Holiday's available, and I'm talking to Philly, I'm gonna just tell Philly I'm gonna make this, not necessarily tell them, but I'm like, Philly knows I can make an offer to get Drew Holiday, and I might not get the same amount of individual scoring, but if I'm a team like, let's say Orlando, a lot of young players, a couple of pieces they can move. You got Banchero, you got Suggs. You can make these
Wagner,
moves.
yeah.
Wagner, so it's like, all right, I can move Jalen Suggs and some kind of package to get Drew Holiday here. He could be my veteran stability piece and let these guys develop. If I'm Orlando, I can't call Philly and make that same move and get James Harden for him to be that stability piece. So
Mm-hmm.
I think in this scenario, for lack of a better analogy, I think Drew Holiday is just like the prettier single girl available to the
So,
suitors.
so I was thinking, and obviously this would be a disappointment for the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
But does Miami go after Drew Holiday? Because then you run into that same issue of what are you going to send Portland? Because obviously they already
If
made a
Portland
move.
if they didn't want to make magic with you, or make a deal with you to get Dame, I'm not sure what you can offer them
What
for
did I
Drew.
miss? Did the Packers go off sides on the field goal?
I was
Yeah,
talking
I
to
was
him,
looking.
so
Yeah, I was looking, and Detroit kicked the field goal, and then I just looked back up on. I was looking at your TV actually, and then they took the points off the board, and Detroit has the ball, 3rd and goal.
and at a minimum, you can run off almost two
So
minutes of
yeah,
three
we're at
plays.
6:51, 3rd and goal. Detroit still up 27-17. Detroit at the 8. Here we go.
I
Jared
think
Goff
Drew
with the
Holiday.
snap. They're going to run the ball, and they're down to the 1. So it looks like they're probably either going to maybe they'll go for it, but we'll see. But anyway, go ahead.
So Drew Holiday, like I said, the fact that Drew Holiday is available, it might kind of stymie the
James
James
Harden.
Harden
Mhm.
talk, because James is getting you 20 points a game, 7,
11
8
assists.
assists, 11
Well, no, I
assists.
think he led the league last year.
I don't think it was last year, but I know recently. So
Okay.
he can be that guy. But if he goes to a place
Oh,
where
they
he
went for it
doesn't,
and got the touchdown. There you go.
if he went to a place where he felt like, oh, Embiid is a better option to me offensively. Max, he's a shooter. Tobias Harris, I got these guys. I can be a playmaker here. But if he goes somewhere like, I'm trying to think of a team. Give me a team. Give me a team.
Well, for Drew Holiday, I was going to bring up the Clippers.
But they got Russ. I don't know how that works. I don't know. Like, and who do you have to give up? Like, because Portland's going to want something. Because Drew Holiday is a talent.
Mm-hmm.
If I think of an Eastern team, like maybe it's Chicago, because Lonzo Ball might never play again. I think that.
Well, I know
player.
that there were talks recently that to try to get Dame, Chicago was dangling Zach LaVine out there.
I think he's a great trade piece because I think that's what he's like 6'6", 6'7",
Mm-hmm.
can score. And people say, "Oh, he doesn't play defense." Defense is a team concept. It's a team mindset.
Yeah,
So
you could always
if
just
I'm on the
switch.
floor with 3 or 4 dudes and they don't care about defense, if if you think about the Knicks when they had Shumpert and what's the boy name, J.R. Smith, they were on the same team. People don't think it, and with Carmelo Anthony, people don't think of them as a defensive team, but you get Shump, J.R. Smith, with Kyrie, Kevin Love, LeBron James on the floor, and those two guys are not given defensive responsibilities, as well as the other 3 guys on the floor who are playing their defensive role. Now
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland looks like a defensive team. So
Right.
it's a mindset. It's not an individual player thing. Yes, James Harden has been notorious about he doesn't play defense, but he was playing in Houston where Mike D'Antoni wanted you to get a shot up with 16 seconds left on the shot clock. So why am I going to waste my energy
Well,
trying
Houston
to defend
also
this second pick and roll when I could just try to get the rebound,
well,
run the
Houston
court, and
also
get a good
just
shot off?
switched everybody, so like it worked out to where Harden didn't necessarily have to be Scottie Pippen, because they had PJ Tucker, they had Chris Paul, they had Trevor Ariza at one point. And you just switch all of that. Like, Boston does that a lot.
Yeah, but
So
once again, they were getting the ball off the rebound or out of the net, and they were trying to get a shot off in 16 by 16 seconds on the play clock. That's what with Nash, that's what Chris Paul, that's what Stoudemire, that's what Sean Marion, like all of those guys. That was the D'Antoni system. So, you know, I like. I wish Harden and Philly could make it work, but it might have been one of those situations where he thought that he was going to get $150 million over 3 years, and it's like, dog, you haven't. You we like I said, we'll talk about this a lot. We did the Air Force thing. The Air Force will give you a bonus to reenlist, but that bonus is extrapolated across the years that you reenlist for, unless you're deployed and you get it tax free, whatever the case may be. So if you sign up for 5 years and they give you a $50,000 bonus, you get like half up front, it's tax, and then they give you portions of the remaining 25,000 over the 5 years. So they're paying you to stay. NBA contracts notoriously have been based off of like your past performance. So you have guys like Dame who are currently probably gonna. I think he's getting about 57 million. I think we discussed in one of our
yeah,
previous
at
episodes.
some point it's going to hit 60 and go north of
60
that.
million, and
Mm-hmm.
then like Russell Westbrook, a lot of his contract people are like, oh my god, you're paying him 48 million. Like, well, when he signed it, it was like 39 million, and then as the years went on, it went from
John
39 to
Wall,
42. John
Chris
Wall,
Paul.
Al Horford, Chris Paul,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Jalen Brown's contract's crazy. So I think as the years have gone by and these contracts have gone up, you got a guy like Steph. Steph is still playing like if you're paying Steph $45 million this year and 48 next year and 50 the year after that, you can look at Steph right now and say to yourself, I'm gonna get 85 to 90% or 90 cents on every dollar I'm giving this guy through what he can bring me over the next 3 years, even though I'm paying him 45, 50, whatever the case. I know I'm gonna get 42 to 43 million dollars out of him because he's still at that prime. You giving James Harden $50 million right now, you're not getting a $50 million season out of him. You'll get a 30 something million dollar season out of him because he's not the game changer they used to be. It's the same thing as like if you try to sign LeBron to a contract right now for 3 years, $55 million a year starting next season, after this season's over. Like you can't look at him and be like, you know what? Over the next 3 years, this guy's worth 155 to 160 million dollars as far as on the court. And I think James Harden got caught in that window because I think his contract might have been a little later. He had college, team, different extensions. Whereas Kyrie's in that window where it's like, I think I got 3 years of Kyrie. I think I can get him. Whereas James might be like, I don't have 3 to 4 years, and he wants that, and I can't give it to him because I'm not seeing a guy. He's bigger. He's a bigger guy. Like De'Aaron Fox at 31 or 32 is probably gonna look the same way. Slender guy, quick move. Zach LaVine is another guy the same way. But like if you're looking at Lonzo Ball, like his knees are so bad, even if he comes back next year and he's like, okay, he's good to go, you can look at like, yo, I don't know if his knees can hold up.
I mean, just look at Kawhi.
With the Harden, it's like I don't know if he is over the hill yet. You don't want to give him $160 million to find out.
Right. And I think Harden, it's just hard to tell because his game is like generally slower anyway. So like, outside of Houston, he does the whole dribble the air out the ball thing. So his game was never really predicated on being athletic, and now as we sit here talking about this, I've been trying to find a team, and I just can't find one, So like for Drew Holiday, for example, I could see the value that he brings to another team as far as having the championship experience, being a defender. Like even if he were to stay,
contenders or just any team.
Just any team, but like more so contenders, because Harden is the type of dude that if you don't have a Joel Embiid, he's the type of player that you almost have to build a system around. Like he has to be the system, or he has to be a big part of the system. Drew Holiday, I think, can just fit in. You can put him on just about any team, and he just brings a certain intensity and level to your team.
Because I feel like Drew Holiday his presence is all about basketball.
Right.
Harden,
he's a celebrity.
It's at first it can come off as celebrity, and that's not an indictment on the fact that he put himself in that position through his talent, his accolades, his awards, his charisma, whatever the case may be. But when it comes down to it, I'm paying you off of your ability to play basketball. Your charisma is cool, but if I'm a contender, I'm filling the arena. I got 18 to 20,000 seats a night full. Yeah, maybe I might not be able to mark my prices up as much if I don't have a Steph, if I don't have Dame, if I don't have a LeBron or KD or Kyrie or Luka or Jokic. But I'm selling out all 41 of my home games off of the fact that I have a good team put together, and I don't want to give too much money to you because I don't know if you're gonna make that team any better. So it's like, why am I giving you more money? Whereas Drew Holiday, if you're a contender, if you are not necessarily Dallas because they have a small guard, Kyrie already, but I'm not sure why Phoenix didn't try to pull him in there.
Well, then they really wouldn't have had no depth.
I mean, like NBA contracts, we gotta make the money work. And like I'm still like I told you, I'm still on that 37 and 45 for Phoenix. I didn't forget. This trade didn't change my mind.
Well, what's Miami now? Max Strus is gone. Gabe Vincent is gone. They still got Jimmy Butler, obviously. Like
Miami has the luxury of playing basketball and figuring it out while the season's going on because he has Eric Spoelstra has the 4 finals run with the Heatles, and then he has 2 more with Jimmy Butler, one in the bubble and then one last year. He has the leverage for people to say, oh, they'll figure it out. They'll get guy number 11 on the bench to come in and contribute 11 to 12 points, or that guy to give you 9 or 10 rebounds because he has the cachet through recent, not necessarily recently biased, but just recent history. So he has that. So he has the parachute to see if his team that he has is working out. And they might make a trade deadline move, whereas you have a team like Dallas, for instance. Dallas is one of those teams that made the move to get Kyrie, that they are the team as a fan base expected to make a splash now because you made the move last year, and we don't know if the coach and the organization, is going to get as far. We might lose Luka. Same thing with Philly. Philly's in that same boat. Philly has to make a move or start off the season very well. 12-2.
Which is definitely on the table.
They have to do that though. Like
right.
The Lakers have to do that. Denver can start off their season 13-10, and people will say, "Oh, that's just hangover from the championship. They lost some pieces. They still have this guy. They still have this guy. They still have this coach. They still have this guy. They'll turn it around." Miami will have that same, they still have Jimmy Butler. They still got Spo. They still got Pat Riley. They'll turn it around.
Right.
Dallas starts off 12-10. It's pandemonium. It's time to panic. Who do you move? Is Luka going to be there? And that just comes along with it. Jrue Holiday can be one of those guys that can calm that kind of talk.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be the absolute perfect team.
I think that he would be like an absolute perfect fit next to Luka, but like just going through the landscape of the NBA, I would imagine that he and Portland are having conversations that involve the word contender, or
the article I read said they're trying to move him to a contender.
Right.
I think that comes off that. I think that's the same thing that Harden doesn't have. I think Harden doesn't have that cachet with front office people because, like we talked about this the other day about guys talking in college football about, tips here, tip here, tip there. I think in the GM office, those guys are probably a little bit more tight knit and like, yo, this dude James Harden showed up in a fat suit in Houston and did everything he could to get out. And then the guy in Boston's like, yeah, Sean Marks like, yeah. I tried to sit them all down, talk to him, and he wasn't trying to hear it. He only sent me, every time I called him, he sent me the voicemail. And now Daryl Morey has the video evidence of James Harden calling him a liar.
Right.
So it just kind of cuts the legs underneath of the Morey because he's like, I can't even move you now because your reputation is such that if you're unhappy, you just want to leave. Well, you calling me a liar, I got to send you to another GM. I got to get another GM to sign off on you.
Well, that's why I've always said
Holiday will be you can send him to Charlotte, and I think he'll still make it pop.
Well, that's why I've always said that, James Harden is everything that Kyrie critics call him.
100%.
So I
saw Kyrie trying to squash beef on Twitter last week. We were talking about it.
Yeah, so
you 2 men should talk about this in private.
So yeah, we'll see what happens though. I'm interested. They've piqued my interest. Like I would like to see where Jrue Holiday ends up. But last thing, I saw that Milwaukee is now the betting favorite to win the title.
All I'm saying is we barely talked about him in this segment. I'm not sure. Like,
all right. So real quick. Obviously, we're going to do an NBA preview at some point, but as of today, sitting here right now, Who's your top 5 contenders?
Out of the league,
Yeah.
I'll go Boston because I like their core. And they're paid. I don't like Philly because I think it's tumultuous. So I'll go Boston, Denver. I gotta say the Knicks because they're still together. I like Cleveland, Sacramento.
This man really gonna sit up here in front of my face and say a team with Julius Randle on it. He didn't even say the Lakers.
Because I think the Lakers have way too many pieces. I think they have way too many. The Lakers are about to get in a fight, and they called up a friend and was like, "Yo, dog, I need you to bring all these people here because these dudes trying to fight me at the skate rink." And the Lakers are showing up with dudes that we don't know if they can fight or not. We they gave them money. They paid Vanderbilt. They brought in Christian Wood. They paid Reeves. Rumor has he could have got $94 million for one team. I think he took
could have
somewhere around the 64
He
to
took
70
4
million.
years. He took 4 years, 56 million.
Yeah, so he took a low number from the Lakers. Granted, he might get 2 or 3 commercial deals out of it if he signs a Clutch Sports. They'll hook him up. He'll be on all the black talk shows and podcasts. So I think the Lakers kind of showed up with these guys that fit this mold, but we have no idea if it works together.
I noticed you didn't say the Warriors either.
I said I said the Warriors right before you said. I'm surprised you didn't say.
Oh, okay.
Like the Warriors, okay. I was whispering the Warriors simply because
the empire has fallen.
I still think the way that they want to play basketball in the NBA right now, the Warriors have the best. I want to say blueprint. The best. I want to say blueprint. They have the pieces you need.
Or they set the standard
to play that, and then they can just not necessarily add a piece, but they can bring in a piece.
Well, they just brought in Rudy Gay yesterday, so
maybe he'll play a little defense.
You know how that goes, but yeah. So I think for me, I got Boston. I'm a little higher than you are on the Lakers, but I don't know about contender.
I just think it's very, very tough to play with LeBron.
Look, I just think it's his. For me, it's just his age. For me, it's just his age.
Shump's on a podcast. J.R. Smith went back to college. Kevin Love, I think he plays in Miami every once in a while. I think it's just tough to play with LeBron. Russ was a former MVP. He had a signature shoe.
I think it's good though because they added pieces this year that are more complementary. They didn't go for the star, so like adding like a Gabe Vincent, he'll get some good looks. Christian Wood can be a bit of a knucklehead though. So I mean we'll have to see how that works out. But I think I go Denver, Boston, Milwaukee. And then from there, it's kind of open season, to where if Ja could keep his head on, I would like Memphis a lot too.
But 25 games,
right? That's tough to come back.
They gotta go 16-9.
Yeah. That's tough to come back
for him to be able to acclimate and hit the ground running.
Yeah, I like Cleveland. And it's tough coming up with a fifth team, so I guess I'll just go with the Lakers. Sacramento, I still think needs either another shooter or like if this EuroLeague player comes over and can do the thing. Because they're still.
I'm just going with continuity. I think
it's hard for me after 2016 to trust a team with Harrison Barnes in the starting lineup.
Yeah, when in doubt, I go with continuity. Like if I ever was in a position to be like a play caller in football, I can have these sluggos and these go routes and these double moves, but 55 degrees, the rain is coming in sideways. I'm running every running back that I have on the field, 2 tight ends, and I'm gonna go with I know this works. I know that if you win this battle across from this guy, it can work. And I think that continuity, that's how you build continuity. Is like, listen,
Right.
let's get these guys going downhill. Granted, this is basketball conversation with a football reference. I just know that works better, and I figure that having a team that went through win, lose, or draw, pain and suffering a previous year,
Mm-hmm.
and you bring that whole group back, and then you add a couple of pieces. I think that only hopes to bold your case to be better the following year versus a team like the Lakers that added random pieces and signed some guys.
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee now with this trade. That's why I'm very low on Phoenix. That's why I'm sticking to that 37 and 45 with Phoenix because it's like I don't think you added the right pieces. Granted, if they make a hell of a move, a 2018 Cleveland Cavaliers move, where you get rid of half the bench and then everybody else comes in as all starters, and you end up in the finals, and I'll eat crow. But I haven't seen that happen a lot in February, March timeframe. So
Right. Well,
I think
hey,
I'm
if you're
pretty
going to
solid.
make NFL references, then I guess we might as well talk about the
Switch it
NFL. So,
up.
so how about these next couple of nights? Sunday night football, Kansas City at the Jets, and then Thursday night football, Chicago at Washington. We love football, but we ain't asked for this.
We gonna watch it.
I know. We gonna watch it. So let's get right into it. So the Miami Dolphins, 10 touchdowns last week. 10 touchdowns.
10
I said
touchdowns.
10 touchdowns, last week. All right, here we go. I always got a question for you.
I'm
How
ready.
many yards did Miami have?
512 total yards.
726.
Jesus Christ. Well,
I am
70 yards per touchdown.
And I am here to tell
That's
you,
a
Mr.
touchdown
Logical.
drive. So 75 to the goal line. So they pretty much had 70 yards, 75 yards per touchdown.
And I am here to tell you, Mr. Logical, the buck stops here.
Oh, you got Buffalo. I'm taking
They're
Miami.
going to Orchard Park. Yes, they're going to Orchard Park. I'm taking Buffalo. James Cook, the third leading rusher in the NFL this season. But these teams are pretty even. So, check this out. So, Miami, of course, even though James Cook is the third leading rusher in the league, Miami's the number one rushing team in the league. Buffalo's number 7. Miami's first in yards per carry. Buffalo's third. Jalen Waddle will be back. So that's obviously a plus for Miami. Having both of your monsters.
This
Buffalo
is ridiculous. I think they should investigate Miami.
So I know
have 4 dudes that run under 4.4.
So I know Miami put up 70 points last week. Buffalo can't match that, but they did outscore their last 2 opponents 75-13. They're coming off a game where they had 9 sacks and 4 interceptions. I think that Buffalo. Commanders. Yeah, I think Buffalo still needs to let the Dolphins. I guess they can't tell the Jets because they lost to the Jets, but they need to let people know that the East runs through them. So, until further notice. So, I got Buffalo. It was a tough pick. Part of it was just Buffalo being at home. Not that Miami has the best home field anyway.
And the weather isn't Buffalo weather yet. So I think that bodes well for Miami. Because if this first game was in Miami this weekend, early October, you're probably still looking at 75 to 80 realistic.
Still got that humidity, though.
Still got the humidity, still got the weather. Whereas now they get it in Buffalo, you might get a 65-degree start time. It won't be crazy. Like I said, I'm in Jersey right now. We got some overcast and the weather's been kind of low, but it's like you're still about 65, 70. So if you get that temperature this weekend, you're solid. You're pretty good, especially with the way that Miami runs the ball. So you're talking about Buffalo being third, and you said third in rush yards.
Well, James Cook is third. Yeah. Buffalo's 7th overall.
Miami Miami gets the ball to the speedster no matter where they are on the field. And it's something else I noticed. I was watching Miami pre-snap. We were talking about this with Atlanta. All this movement happens pre-snap, and then everyone stops, and then they snap the ball. With
Right.
Miami, what I was noticing is that it'd be a lot of movement pre-snap, and then out of nowhere, Barrios will just sprint towards the sideline, and they snap the ball. So as a linebacker, I gotta look. I gotta look and see what is he doing. So he would go straight to the sideline, and it would put Tyreek Hill in motion, and he'd come back the other way, and he would do the same thing. So now you're looking this way on the different play. Obviously, because two guys can't go in motion at the same time, and he would do something across line scrimmage that's way different than what Barrios was doing. So I think it was, and it seemed like it was happening on every one of Miami's big plays where they just were, let me just run a speed, because Barrios is not a slow guy either. He's a small, quick slot guy. He's like a quicker version of Wes Walker.
Yeah, went to the University of Miami.
Like a quicker Edelman. So he gets in the slot. And he makes those moves. So I think Mike McDaniels just is in such a groove.
He's in his bag.
I said, I talk about Tua's arm and not being as strong as Josh Allen. But what happens is those guys get open so quick off of those kind of actions that Tua just gets rid of the ball. I think Josh Allen will. Miami gets up 10-0. I think Josh is going to press. Either he's going to keep holding on to the ball or he's going to throw it into some crazy double coverage. And then Miami's going to let the horses go.
Well, I'm excited. You remember last year, both the games, well, all three of the games, I guess, between these two teams were good.
Playoff one, excuse me.
The playoff one, yep. The first game, down in Miami last year, Josh Allen ran out of time trying to get down the field, 2-point loss. And then later in the year, when it was a little bit colder, they went up to Buffalo and they were going back and forth up and down the field playing pinball. Buffalo pulled it out. So these two teams know each other well, but two teams that may not know each other well, but Jacksonville definitely knows England very well. So Wembley Stadium,
Atlanta beat them there last time.
Falcons and Jaguars, or Jaguars, depending on where you're from, I guess.
Yeah, I wanna have faith in my team. Excuse me, I had to take care of that situation. I was doing a little research.
It never ends well when it starts off with "I want to have faith in my team."
I was just doing a little research. I was just looking at some things. Calvin Ridley was in London the last time he was a Falcons. I think that the week after that is when he took his leave of absence, and then subsequently was suspended. Oh, he the remainder of that year he was on mental health, and then the next year he was suspended in the off season. I was never really a big fan of Doug Peterson. I know he had the Philly special and Nick Foles or whatever the case may be, but he did put in Nate Sudfeld when they could have beat the then Redskins, and then potentially send Dallas to the playoffs when he put in Nate Sudfeld. So, and that was the last game of the season. That was game 256. And I remember Chris Collinsworth was killing him for it.
Yeah, division rival. I mean, you got a chance to end their season.
Gave him a win just so Dallas wouldn't get in. And I know Philly fans on the low will be like, we rock with that, but at the same time, we don't rock with that.
Yeah.
Because Dallas got shafted or whatever the case may be. But this neither here nor there. I think Trevor Lawrence has been playing as if he's trying to live up to the 27-point comeback against the Chargers last year versus just playing fluid. Yes, you have so many weapons. Etienne, Ridley, Ingram, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. You have so many weapons. You have an offensive head coach. Just play to the strengths of your weapons and not to the allure of last season's playoff victory. and it'd be fun. I think he would make that next step.
I think they
I hope
will.
he doesn't make it on Sunday.
I think they
So
will.
I'm
And I
taking
think they're
Atlanta because I think
desperate.
Atlanta's going to control the clock.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's
As
desperate.
boring as that may be, I think they'll just try to control the clock.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville is desperate. You know, last week against Houston, they only scored 17 points. They lost
And
by 20.
whooped. They got whooped.
Yeah, they lost by 20.
From
And
Ohio State.
they had 404 total yards in that game. You know, they had like I was talking about the video game and the jack. Yeah, you know, like when you playing spades, somehow that jack got across the table and won the book. And you're like, how the hell did that happen? So, you know,
that's with the fullback returning the
kickoff.
returning
the kickoff. And not only did he return the touchdown, he muffed it too.
He muffed it and broke 3 tackles.
And he picked it up, broke 3 tackles, and took it to the house. You know, Atlanta is 8th in yards allowed. So, you know, it's going to be tough to move the ball against them. And if Atlanta can have success running the ball, you know, we talked about it. Detroit held them combined, Bijan and Algier, 17 rushes for 45 yards the other day.
Less than 50 yards. You can't win football games like that.
Yeah, so I don't know if Jacksonville's defense is good enough to do that, you know, but I just think that coming off of last week, the turnovers, they were probably still a little hungover from losing to Kansas City because I think they put a lot into that game. And obviously it didn't work out so well for them or me. But, you know, I think Jacksonville pulls it out, you know, which gets me over, you know, Ravens and Browns, you know, that's going to be a great game, I think. You know, Baltimore coming off the overtime loss to Indianapolis where Zay Flowers got held on 4th down and they didn't call it, but that's a whole nother story. And then you got the Browns only giving up 10.7 points a game, 3.2 yards per play, and they've only given up 21 first downs in these first 3 games and only 1 offensive touchdown in these 3 games.
You ever hear this? I remember like the basis of this my point is coming off what something that Nick Wright said on First Things First a couple years ago, and he was talking about how it was the Dan Campbell quote. You know, like Dan Campbell, he's like a gritty guy. He like embodies the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
And he was like, he makes it seem like, oh, so guys who go and coach or play in Miami, just like the glitz and glamour of Miami, is like, are they not gritty guys because they play in Miami? And the same thing with teams like LA or Vegas or whatever the case would be. He's like, are these guys not gritty football players because they play in these glamorous, style cities? But with that being said, Cleveland is like a blue collar, we used to build cars and make steel here kind of city, and it all went away, and all we have now left is football. And I've picked against them the last couple of weeks, but just what I admire about football, I love the skill positions, like the guys who are flying around, linebackers, corners, safeties, running backs. Like I have 2 sons that play football. They play linebacker and running back, and like I said, my now son's plays quarterback. So it's like all the skill positions. But the love I have for football is in the trenches, man. Those dudes are just grinders.
The big nasties.
They do so much. The big nasties in the middle. And I think Cleveland just keeps, for some reason, finding these big nasties and put them into this scheme, and they just make it work. No diva stuff. Like I think Baker Mayfield might have been a little bit more of a diva than same thing probably Odell Beckham Jr. Deshaun Watson, for all intents and purposes, yes, he had his issues and he's working through that, and no one's here to condemn him for that. But I think at his core, he's just he's a grinder. Like he runs the ball hard. He doesn't run out of bounds. He's just one of those guys. He's just a gamer. Like you don't know what the stat line is for him from Clemson, Houston, and now Cleveland. But then you look up and he might be 21 for 32, 220 something yards. But he also has like 8 rushes for 62 yards, and 4 of those rushes went for first downs. Like just that kind of like not running out of bounds, just that battle mentality. And I think Lamar plays that same way. But Lamar, might be in a situation where he's trying to prove I can throw, whereas Deshaun, no one ever doubted his ability to throw the ball. Even though they might be on par, the conversation and narrative surrounding each one of these guys passing the ball is not the same. No one talks about how Deshaun can't pass it and how the new offense is going to be too much for him. That's all the conversation has been from the time that Lamar didn't sign his franchise tag. They hired new offensive coordinators after they fired their previous one. The whole conversation has been about, can Lamar keep up on it? I think sometimes that might cause you to play a certain type of way. So I'm gonna take Cleveland because they're at home, and they, like I said, I think they play the trenches well. I think that's the toss up. Everything else can be completely even. I just think that in a 20-17 game, Cleveland's going to be the team that moves the ball down in the tie game 17-17 in the fourth quarter and gets a position for a field goal.
I'm taking I'm taking Baltimore. I need Deshaun Watson to show.
That's because you're from Baltimore. No,
yes, I need Deshaun Watson to show me that he can string together consecutive performances. Because he played really well last week. Probably his best game back since he's been back from suspension and everything. But I just got to see it twice in a row. I like the Ravens, coming off that loss last week. They're the type of team that just handles adversity. They bounce back. You never know who's going to suit up for the Ravens. They're always injured. But the one thing you can count on from the Ravens is effort.
They play hard.
Yeah, so I'm going with the Ravens in that one. Real quick, Pittsburgh, Houston, who you got?
I take Pittsburgh. Just picked against Mike Tomlin last week. I like CJ Stroud. I like what he's doing. I like his confidence, I like his poise. We talk about college football a lot, and maybe he gets, if Kirby Smart doesn't call a timeout on that fake punt that he recognized that Ohio State was about to run, because the whistle blew very late and they ran it and got it, but they're like,
right,
he's in the national championship game and he's hoisting a trophy, because I don't think TCU had an answer. Because even with that, they still had a real chance to win, but the kicker he was confident. I remember seeing his face. He came out there like he was listening to like some real, like he was listening to Bone Thugs.
He came out there like Charlie Sheen, man, like in Wild Thing. He came out there like Wild Thing.
Yeah, he came out there like, oh, this is nothing to me, and kicked it into the concession stand. But so I'm gonna give Pittsburgh the edge because, like I said, I picked against Tomlin a few days ago, and I'm not gonna do it again.
See, games like this is why I hate being stat guy, because the numbers can say a lot of different things.
So me and you, Houston should win.
Because me and you always talk about Pittsburgh's defense, TJ Watt, the turnovers that they've been forcing, all that stuff. But when I look at it, they're 28th in yards allowed. They're 30th against the run, 22nd against the pass.
we're 3 weeks in, so you could be at 514 yards given up, and the team's 19.
Well, it's like the Falcons. Like the Falcons. The Falcons are like 4th in fourth quarter points, but half of that was the game against Green Bay. So
but they're also 29th in pass yards per game.
Right.
That's the stat you can use. Like, you're not passing it. You're 29th. And they give you numbers like 4-point yards on the tip. Some crazy number like that. Yeah.
So in the game that should be at midnight, I took the Broncos over the Bears. I just think that the Broncos
too, but it's
I just think they're going to play on fire after giving up 70 points. It's going to go one or two ways. They're either going to come out on fire or they're going to come out low. Justin Fields is going to look good for about a half.
Justin Fields still doesn't have a 300-yard passing game. He's played 27 games. CJ Stroud has one.
Like, he just be trying to impersonate Daniel Jones, huh? So, Commanders and Eagles. Commanders and Eagles. So here's
Philly, because Philly, they're just gonna maul you. Philly's that ground and pound MMA fight. Like, they're not gonna keep you. They're just that steady dose of Swift, Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, get down to the 2-yard line, Jalen Hurts. 3rd and 1, Jalen Hurts. 4th and 1, Jalen Hurts. 3rd and 1 from the goal, Jalen Hurts.
As my wife would say, You know what makes my heart melt? So, we saw Philly lose to Kansas City, even though, like, some would argue they lost to the field. But in their last, Philly is 17-1 in their last regular season games that Jalen Hurts has started. The one loss was to the Commanders last year on a Monday night.
That was like 26-17 or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was Monday night. Yep, Monday night.
I remember a bogus call got Washington a first down when they were only up one possession.
Yeah,
though.
That's what you remember. You don't remember the
Yeah,
calls
that was
Philly
a
got,
bogus
huh?
call.
Okay, but
I
but
don't. I
Philly.
remember the field only impacted the Eagles also.
But yeah, to your
Selective
point,
memory.
Philly is averaging 185.7 yards a game on the ground, which is just sounds ridiculous.
Swift looks ridiculous. He looks like if you think about he only got the ball one time week 1. The way
Right.
he's looked the last
Right.
couple of games,
Right.
he makes you not want to congratulate the offensive coordinator for figuring it out, but it makes you want to slap him for game 1.
Well, it's crazy too. The other part, like about Philly, that gets me is not trying to be hot take guy, but is Jalen Carter the best defensive player on the team?
Yo, like he was
Yeah.
sitting there at 8. What was it? I saw something the other day. They were talking about how trading back in the draft and trading up in the draft and how all of that can really work out for you. Or maybe you could lose out. But it was like Chicago traded out of that spot prior to it, like getting to 8 or whatever the case may be. And they traded out of 8 to where they could have gotten Jalen Carter. And it's like, and I know it's not an exact science because everyone probably.
And I mean, they did need a lineman.
Get DeMario Williams when he was, with the Texans and taking a one overall, or get Matthew Stafford because of this. Everyone screamed, get Sam Bradford, and I get it. But I think the trench players, it's a little, even for me, there's like a novice fan. I'm like, that translates. Jordan Davis in college chasing down a wide receiver screen pass that he got beat on because it was like a screen and he ran up and it was like, oh, there's no offensive lineman here to block me. It must be a screen behind me. Turns around and chases it down. Granted, yeah, I think the guy still got the first down, but I'm like, he got the tackle on that play at 320 plus pounds. It's like, okay, I can put that on any team and make it work. Granted, they put him behind Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and made it work. So then they were like, okay, cool. We got Jalen Carter coming right now. We already have the blueprint because we just did it with Jordan Davis. That's why they split it up a year. Because Davis kind of sat for a little bit and they figured it out. And they're like, oh, this is how you Georgia boys play. This is your technique. Let me get you another one. Let me get Nolan Smith. Let me get Nakobe Dean. Let me get guys up here to speak your language and watch what happens. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I got Philly. Sam Howell's gonna get sacked some more. Then we got Rams Colts. This was a tough game for me to pick, but I ended up picking the Colts. I mean, I picked the Rams.
You picked the Rams?
Yeah, I picked the Rams.
I'm gonna take the Colts. I don't like the way the Rams block up front. I don't like their lack of weapons. I don't like Sean McVay's playbook without an outside weapon. It just doesn't seem like his play call, not necessarily play call, but his playbook. His playbook is built to have multiple weapons, and he doesn't have them.
Yeah, he's allergic to run plays. Apparently,
he's calling his pass plays. He's calling his pass plays like he has the Bears wide receiving core. They're not all top flight guys. It's not like you got like Julio, DeAndre, and this Sean Jackson in the slot. But you have, pretty solid wide receivers. He's calling pass plays like that's the core he has. It's like, nah, dog, you don't have that core.
Yeah, I got
I'll pick Indy.
I got the Vikings getting their first win
over Carolina.
The Packers. Looks like Bryce Young might play.
Doesn't matter. They're still gonna lose.
And I'm just real quick before we move from that one, just shout out to Madison, getting all the crazy stuff on Twitter and actually running for 93 yards last week when he only had 69 yards in the first 2 games. So, Minnesota's turning it around, I guess. I got the Chargers, Jimmy G in the concussion protocol.
Yo, I'm so sick of Josh McDaniels thinking that it's the quarterback's fault, dog. We all see it's you. We all see it, man. You got over 30 games coached. It's you. You are not good at what you're trying to do.
Like,
It's that simple.
Forget whatever happened on the field, right? I still can't believe this guy drafted Tim Tebow the way that he did. Like,
he traded up for Tim Tebow.
That tells you everything you need to know right there. But yeah, I got the
Tim Tebow throw one slant. I've been like, this dude should never play football ever again.
All right, now I'm about to do something I'm gonna regret, and I know I'm
the Jets over Kansas City.
No. I'm gonna pick the Titans. Burrow still nursing that calf. Short week going on the road. Tennessee. So here's something funny. So they played Cleveland last week. I gave you the stats about how Cleveland's holding people to 3.2 yards a play and all that stuff like that. Correct. Titans finished that game with 94 yards of total offense. They are an NFL team, or at least they're supposed to be. But where this game is interesting to me is because, Joe Burrow with the injury that we talked about. But so when I was looking at the numbers here, and of course, it's only week 4, but passing offense, Cincinnati's 26, Tennessee's 30. Rushing offense, Cincinnati's 29, and even with Derrick Henry, Tennessee's 23rd. Myles Garrett had 9 sacks last week, or I'm sorry, 9 pressures against Tennessee last week. So, I expect Tannehill's
going to trying to double team him so much when he was running back and forth to get them to delay a game penalty.
Yeah, Tannehill's going to see a lot of Trey Hendrickson, who pressured Stafford 10 times on Monday night. The Bengals. So
you pick Cincinnati?
No, I'm picking the Titans. And
you're picking the Titans even with all that.
Yep, because the Bengals are giving up 5.1 yards a carry, and that tells me that Tennessee might be able to get this rushing game started finally. And I just don't know about Burrow's leg. Like obviously I don't expect T. Higgins to drop the passes.
One play when he ran from Aaron Donald, I felt like he definitely was playing at 65 to 70%.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know when it was, but I remember he went to the left and he went to plant and roll back. He went to his left and he went to roll back.
Yeah.
To the right side to the other formation. And that roll was it wasn't boom. It was and then by the time he got here, he was sacked. Yeah.
Well, and even with Cincinnati giving up 5.1 yards a carry, Tennessee's giving up 10.7 yards of completion. So this game just has Bears Broncos written all over it. But
I just took the home team. at this point,
because Tennessee's the home team, right?
Yeah, I took Tennessee.
Yeah, okay.
I took Tennessee. They're healthy. Vrabel, granted, he's not a Belichick disciple. The long term, I'm not a big proponent that to continue to pick Tennessee week to week. The calf injury is problematic for me, mainly because we saw when it occurred, he mentioned it in the post game press conference 2 weeks ago, and then Aaron Donald pressured him up the middle, and then we saw it again. So if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm like, okay, this is what he can't do because of the injury. This is what he's limited to. So when he's throwing these quick passes to Jamar Chase or he's throwing these passes to T. Higgins, that has to happen because his escapability is so compromised.
Mm-hmm.
He might be, obviously, he's just as smart. His arm strength and everything is all still there. But it's like if he can't get whatever targets he sent to Jamar Chase, so if he threw 15 passes to Jamar and 10 to T. Higgins, those 25 plays, if they simply get those 25 plays, they'll be like, okay, this is what he's capable of doing, because those few pressures that Aaron Donald got through, it looked bad. Like he wasn't
Right.
stretching out on his run. He was hobbling and he just threw it and barely,
Yeah,
got a lot of
and it's a
film.
short week, and with the travel and everything as well. Then I got the Saints over the Bucks. Alvin Kamara, welcome back. Tampa may be without.
Is Derek Carr gonna play or is Jameis Winston gonna play?
I don't care.
I got Tampa Bay. I
Tampa.
like the combination. I like the Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans combination, because there's a lot like Johnny Manziel, Mike Evans. If you just look at the film, I think he just was like, "Oh, if I just throw it over here, it's just him and a defender over there. I'm just let it go."
Well, I'm
It was like
alarmed
old school
because
Julio.
I'm alarmed because both of their starting corners are on the injured list. We'll see if they play or not. But both their starting corners are on the injured list. Vita Vea is on the injured list. Devin White's on the injury report.
Yeah, but as
So
long as
we'll
you
just
got
have to
11
see.
defenders opposite of Jameis Winston, he gonna throw it to 2 or 3 of those guys.
That's a good point.
He
That's a
just
good
got
point.
LASIK last year.
That's a good point. Then I got New England going into Jerry World and coming out victorious.
Same here. And I think that might be the game where you're texting me when the score is 23-0. We were like, man, why did we pick New England?
Well, I just think that everybody, including us, got caught up in the Dallas hype from the first 2 games where they were dominant against the Giants. They were dominant against the Jets, but their offense didn't have to rely on their offense to make a play. Their defense.
That's a good thing. Like we talked about it.
No, that is a good thing until your offense has to make a play and they can't.
Defense travels because it's like in the defense, I think the only thing a defense really has to adjust for is snow.
They gave up 222 rushing yards to a team that was quarterbacked by Josh Dobbs.
Yes, but they put Rondell Moore back there. He runs like a 4.3.
Hey, that's my guy.
Whoever the cornerback is, number one, he took a terrible angle on that touchdown run. They just took bad angles, but normally defense, because 5 or 6 guys are only there to rush the passer in an NFL game. If you have your 4 down linemen, maybe if you have a guy like TJ Watt, Michael Parsons, Myles Garrett's a down lineman. Some of these guys, all they do is get upfield, rush passer, and then try to stop the run. So what we saw out of Dallas was simply those 11 guys on that side of the ball were taking care of business. You can do that in any weather. I think the only defensive problem you can have is cornerbacks and safeties in the snow. Because if they slip, it's a wrap. Like if you're a corner and you slip in man coverage, even like cover 3, it's a touchdown because the dude's wide open. But for the most part, you got a good running game, my defense is better. Oh, you got a good pass game, my pass rush is top notch. Oh, you got a good screen game, cool. I have, a top notch athletic linebacker wearing number 11. So I just thought that would travel, and I thought Arizona was going to be just another cog in that wheel of, Dallas chopping down offenses. But I'm taking New England this week because I think that Bill Belichick will deliberately put his team in place to take advantage of Dallas mistakes. And Mike McCarthy won't. I don't think he will. Yeah.
That was a part of my thought as well, and speaking of the Cardinals, I think this is the week they get it laid on them, I'm taking the 49ers plus whatever the points are. I think
you're taking 73-20.
No, it ain't gonna be all that, but it's gonna be something along the lines of like 30-10 or something like that. San Francisco leading rusher, Christian McCaffrey, heavy dose of that. We'll see. And then Sunday night, obviously we both got the Chiefs. We don't gotta get into that one. And then we only got one Monday night game.
Wait, hold on.
So check it out. So I'm in before I record. I'm in this I'm in the master's degree program through Park University, based out of Missouri. So my professor, she asked about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce because they're all Chiefs fans because she's from out there, and I was like, yeah, Taylor Swift might be. Well, the rumor is she could be at the game at MetLife Stadium, which is driving up the prices of the tickets for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, she's not gonna perform. But that's the effect. Like that's the part.
They
That's
just
the
want to
part I
be
love
around
about.
greatness, bro.
They just want to be around it. So yeah, it's gonna
But
be
yeah,
fun. Zach Wilson getting yelled at by fans. Like these tickets ain't cheap. Yo,
but see,
Long
but
Island
the way the
fans.
NFL works, the Jets will keep this within like a 4-point game. That's just how the NFL seems to work.
Nah.
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 Nah. But then we got one
Nah.
Monday night. We got one Monday night game, traditional style, Seahawks at the Giants. I got the Seahawks, the Giants got to get off. They got to find a way to start games because so far this season, in the first half, obviously a lot of that is the Cardinals game, but Dallas got up on them too. So they've been outscored by 27 points in the first halves of games this year. Daniel Jones
is going to be top 10 quarterback. He has to get off to
165 yards per game, Daniel Jones, that is. And then on top of that, the Giants are 25th in rushing. I don't know if Saquon is playing or not. So generally my rule of thumb is if Saquon's not playing, I don't pick the Giants. It's usually just that simple for me.
Yeah, I got Seattle on that one too.
Yeah, Seattle, this is the week for Daniel Jones. This is the week. Seattle is 31st against the pass. So, if he's going to come out of the shell, this is the week to do it.
It's going to be tough. I don't know how much they paint MetLife, but if the Jets are playing home Sunday and they got to turn around and repaint, if they only paint the end zones, then it's fine. But if because I've been to MetLife a few times, I know the NFL emblem is at the 50-yard line.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else other than like cosmetics to change it.
Yeah, they just got like their ribbons and all that stuff.
The ribbons and the banners and like these other blocks. But the paint, the end zone paint, maybe that's tough on a defender on like an out route or a slant route inside the end zone because the paint. Because right now, like I think our temperature, it's been raining. So today is Thursday. They're probably painting at least between Friday and Saturday.
Yep.
I think it's gonna be overcast, humidity. So that could be something to look out for. Like just guys slipping on routes. You got guys like DK Metcalf that like to push off. So you got a defender who's trying to hold his ground against DK Metcalf, a big wide receiver in the end zone, and he slips on wet paint.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, granted, I'm not sure if it'll be like such a Twitter outrage as a Super Bowl paint, but that's a quick turnaround to have back-to-back NFL games. And you said the Jets game. That's a day. If that's a daytime line, they're good to go.
It's a Sunday night game.
So that's the Sunday night game.
It's the Sunday night game, and then the Giants are Monday night.
Monday night game. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough. Unless they better have some other kind of plan. But like, I would say your advantage would be in that case. Even if you were thinking about picking the Jets or the Giants, you would have to be like that basic premise. Like, okay, I got Kelce posted up in end zone. He knows exactly where he needs to be, and the linebacker's trying to come over, the safety trying to come over, and wet paint, or he's making one of those little dig routes where you come in, come back out. So yeah,
well, yeah,
I think we agreed on most of these games. Like you got Buffalo, I got Miami, we both got Pittsburgh. You got Jacksonville, I got Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Both got Philly.
Both got Philly. Got Pittsburgh. You got New Orleans, so I'll take Tampa Bay.
Yep, I got the Rams. You got the Colts.
Indy.
We both got Tennessee.
I got Cleveland. You got Baltimore.
Both got the Chargers.
Yep.
We both got Minnesota.
Come on, Kirk Cousins, man. Shout out. I'm not in Atlanta.
So 2 games back to back at MetLife. 2 games back to back at Jerry World. because Saturday we got Texas A&M playing host to Arkansas, and I just want to say I'm so excited for next week because next week is A&M Alabama. So is A&M going to get caught looking ahead? But
Arkansas played LSU pretty tough last week.
They did. I'm picking the upset. I'm picking Arkansas. You know, like every year when they play, this is just wild. I don't know if you remember last year's game, but last year was the big Twitter field goal off the top of the upright. You know, KJ Jefferson fumbled going into the end zone. A&M ran it back 99 yards, won the game by 2. A&M has won 10 of 11 in this series. You know, they got Bama on the horizon. You know, I just think that Arkansas's coach is one. He's playing for his job, probably. Sam Pittman. He's playing for his job. So
I like old head. I like old head coaches.
And Connor Wegman, you know, A&M's quarterback, you know, looks like he's going to be out for the season. So turning the keys over to Brad Johnson's son, Max. You know,
this was at LSU.
Yep. And
transfer guys, he's still left-handed, right?
Yep, and he played against, you know, he has played against, and so this ain't the thing where a new quarterback's coming in, it's going to be scary or we don't know what to expect. He's going to play well. I just think Arkansas is going to win, you know. And then since we're talking about upsets, you know, go ahead. You know, I got to say it. I got to do it. Go on and give me the Beavers tomorrow night to upset the Utes. Even though it's not really an upset. It's not really an upset because the Beavers are actually favored. But just looking at the rankings, you know, like it's an upset. So I'm going with Oregon State to take down Utah. You know, Utah, like they're the Cleveland Browns, basically. You know, they're only giving up 6.5 points per game. And they're 9th in total yards given up. So, you know, it's going to be a struggle. DJ is going to have to be accurate. You know, he hasn't been the last couple of weeks. In fact, against Washington State, here goes my word.
I don't think he's organically a natural.
I agree.
Passing quarterback, and I think he's a strong arm. I think he came from a great school on you, but even with that, I think it's a matter of if he was Bryce Young size, they wouldn't let him play quarterback.
Oh, here's my word. I got to say my word. Here we go. Because, of course, last week, DJ was up in the Palouse. You know what I mean? And he went 17 for 34 for 198 with a touchdown and a pick.
That's Washington State.
Yes, up in Pullman, Washington. You know, but Damian Martinez, you know, Oregon State 9th in rushing yards per game. Utah ran it 48 times against UCLA. So I expect this to be a very, very, very low scoring game. You know, still no word if Cam Rising is going to play or not. And even if he does play, how rusty is he going to be? Is he going to trust his legs to take off when he needs to?
I'm not sure why anybody even believes that Cam Rising will play at all this year.
I don't know.
He tore his ACL in January.
In the bowl game, yep. So, yeah.
It's September 29th. It's not even like that's an 11-month for Adrian Peterson was the anomaly. Adrian Peterson had surgery, I remember, January 1st, because he tore his ACL late December in the game. Towards ACL, MCL, PCL, everything was gone. Had his surgery.
All the L's.
January 1st, and then started the season, and then almost broke Eric Dickerson's record. Yes, That sounds like, the surgery went great. No, his mother was like All-American at track, and his dad was an All-American linebacker. So he was just genetically different.
Yeah.
Like that's why he was able to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not built like that.
Well, the Utes, I think they should they need this game, even though they're undefeated, you know, when it comes to the Pac-12, because next week they get Cal, so they'll get a little bit of a breather.
That's a win.
But then is the back-to-back from hell when they go to LA to play Trojangelis, aka USC, and then they come back home for Duckzilla, aka Oregon. So these next couple of weeks are going to be big for the Ute season. Everybody's been disrespecting them, not necessarily considering them to be a factor and chance to win the Pac-12, even though they are the 2-time reigning defending champion.
They're
But
top 10. They're number 10 in the top 25.
yeah,
I think what it is that we have
it's the style of play.
when it comes to rankings and how we feel about them, there are the preemptive. Oh, we know they're a good team. Insert LSU, FSU, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, all these top teams, these perennial top teams, USC. Like, oh, we know they're good. And then you have this next wave of teams like Washington State, Utah. I mean, mixing a little Michigan, a little Pac, Penn State, Michigan State if they're good. Not many ACC teams that people kind of like trickle in, because I think most people, feel about these teams like, oh, they'll lose eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Some schools, like when you get these Pac-12 schools, you get these Big 12 schools. Like if Texas runs through their little tough gauntlet here, this middle chunk of the season with a couple of rivalry games, they're
Yeah.
going to be a force coming down the stretch to knock a team like LSU out of the college football playoff, because Texas is going to be in a position to be like, they're going to have more quality wins, yada, 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 yada. That whole narrative that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So I think there's like 7 to 8 teams, the top 7 to 8 teams that people just kind of lock in, like, oh, these teams are good. But the teams at around this time, late September, early October, that are your 9, 10 to 17, people kind of feel weary about them.
Well, I brought up A&M Bama next week. Next week is Red River as well. So high noon, Texas State Fair, Sooners, and Longhorns. So please, guys, get through this weekend, because Texas has the Jayhawks coming in. The Jayhawks can put up points with the best of them. And then Oklahoma has the Cyclones coming into Norman. Normally I wouldn't be worried about that, but Iowa State's just one of those teams. You can't take your eye off the prize. But I got 2 more upsets for you. 2 more upsets. Yeah, I got. Well, some of these aren't necessarily like I said, Utah would be an upset just off of ranking, but Oregon State is the actual favorite. A&M's favorite by a touchdown. So, but give me Florida going into the Commonwealth and knocking off the Wildcats, from 1986 to 2018.
Wait, hold on. You got Florida beating the Wildcats? That's not an upset. Florida's ranked.
Kentucky was favorite last time I looked.
They were favorite?
Yeah.
Let's see what I got.
Let's see. But
so Kentucky's undefeated.
Yeah, Kentucky's undefeated. I got it right here. Kentucky's favored by 1.
Okay.
So but Florida is just, I think the win against Tennessee gave them a lot of confidence. It's funny because looking back at this series, from let's see, I had it in my note here. Here it is. So from the late 80s until 2018, they beat Kentucky 31 straight times. But Kentucky has won 3 out of the last 5. These games get a little wild too. I think this was going to be another low-scoring game. Who's going to run the ball better is basically going to tell the tale. Florida has an ETN.
17, 2017, something like that.
Yeah, Florida has an ETN. Kentucky doesn't. Devin Leary came in from NC State, was supposed to be the quarterback that Kentucky hadn't had in a long time, but he's been turning the ball over. So Florida's going to make him pay. I mean, he threw 2 or 3 picks against Vandy last week, for example, as a reference point. And then my last upset, this is the one that I have the least bit of confidence in, because this went into no statistical analysis or anything. This was just straight up. This was my mind. Give me Michigan State over Iowa. So I know, Michigan State just fired Mel Tucker. They're going into Iowa City.
1 foot out of the door, man.
I know that's
another game.
That might be the point. That might be the point. That's the point. They got 30 days to jump into the portal, so it's time to audition. Iowa is coming off a game where they had 33 plays and only 76 total yards, and I don't think they're getting any better. We talked about, how their receivers only have 14 catches. The top 2 running backs have been injured.
I think that sword of Damocles hanging over their head with that point total is
Yeah.
tough. That's tough
Yeah.
pressure considering that
Yeah.
they don't have the personnel to score those kind of points like
Yeah.
consistently. 25
Yeah.
points isn't a lot, but that's essentially scoring on at least four or five possessions, depends on how many field goals you kick.
Yeah.
If you only got 33 plays in a game, I mean, how many possessions did you really? Okay, yeah,
Right.
maybe you got 11 3 and outs, but
Well, I'm
that's
going
not
with Sparty.
beneficial.
That's my reach upset. That's the one that I feel least confident about. Michigan is going on the road for the first time, going up to Lincoln, Nebraska. Michigan, for all you bettors out there, has not covered in any game this season yet.
What's the
You
spread
know,
for this one?
the spread for this one, I'm glad you asked because I will pull that up. I got it right here. Actually, they are favored by 17.5.
Colorado beat them by more than that, so yeah, I would take that.
I would too. But I'm just saying, beware. Georgia has not covered yet this year. They're favored by 14. Their first road game going down to the Plains in Jordan-Hare, where I like to call it West Georgia, even though it's in Alabama, to play the Auburn Tigers, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Hugh Freeze might have something up his sleeve, so we might see something like a 10-7 halftime game, and then Georgia just wakes up in the locker room. So, I can see something like that happening. But
What
the
do you got
game,
USC Colorado?
I got Colorado covering, but I got Colorado coming through the back door. So I got USC jumping out early, 21-3 or so, something along those lines. Because I think that
It'll look a lot like Oregon.
Yeah, Bear Alexander is going to be all up in Shadur's chili, because they're not going to be able to block. They're not going to be
They
able
don't
to.
have the dogs in the trenches.
And like I said the other night, I really believe this. Like I try to get more into the numbers more than I try to get into the psyches and all that. But Caleb Williams heard all the talk about Shador for Heisman, and he heard about like how this guy is like going to take over the conference XYZ.
But even Deion clearly said that Caleb was number one pick.
Well, I know that, but you know what I mean. But
if he would have said something like, "Hey, I'm bringing my luggage in this Louis, we coming for the number one spot," and he said nothing else, I think Caleb knows he's upper echelon and he's
but we know that as great players. But we all know that as great players, you have to
like Illinois.
You have to come up with your own internalized BS to stay motivated and all that stuff.
Oh, the whole Jordan.
Yeah, because this is an easy
about
game.
Going out to a bar and the guy disrespecting him, and he's like, "Man, I never went out with Jordan a day in my life."
And Colorado's in a tough position now because Colorado just turned into Alabama.
Because I think Colorado's in a good, like the proverbial Skip Bayless say, the catbird seat.
The catbird seat. No,
because I think they can lose, and I think they can lose. Just think about
Well, I think we're having two different conversations. Like that's
Deion
not
had
where
a
I'm going.
response. Oh, that's Deion not where had a response about the loss in and of itself. And they asked him about putting in Cormani. And they were like, "Did you get him in the game?" He's like, "What made you put him in the game?" He was like, "The score." So it just like it kind of took the sting off, like what the numbers of the score was, and I think he kind of has maybe that built into his pre.
Well, no, that wasn't. Speech. No, that wasn't where I was going with it. I was going with like they're Alabama from the standpoint that with all the exposure, all the attention and everything, they're going to get everybody's best shot. Like everybody's coming out to beat Colorado. Like this is not like they got beat by Oregon and people are like, ooh, there's blood in the water, or like, hey, we're going to go get Colorado. This is like, I'm tired of Colorado getting this attention. I'm tired of turning on the TV, hearing about Colorado. So they're just going to get everybody's best shot as if they are a good team.
How many days of airplay does the head coach that's about to play Colorado get? Because, like, I don't know if anyone knew who Jay Norvell was or Dan Lanning before the last.
I think people knew Dan Lanning just because he came from Georgia, but Jay
You think
Norvell.
you think his name was mentioned as far as pundits and just conversations more than Matt Rule? Because Matt Rule was an NFL head coach.
No,
He
it
only got
wasn't
30
mentioned
with
more.
him.
No, it wasn't
That's the,
mentioned more than Matt Rule.
so
But
then you
when
go,
you're
but
talking
Jay
about college
Norvell,
football,
like no one was mentioning that name before he said something about the sunglasses. So
right?
I think every head coach, like right now, granted, we all know Lincoln Riley because he slid out of Oklahoma, like the Colts slid out of Baltimore in the middle of the night.
The Mayflower.
The Mayflower,
Yeah.
and his wife and his kids all wearing, USC colors the next day at the press conference. So everyone knows who that guy is. And you said Colorado's going to get everybody's best shot. I think watching the Oregon game, and if you're a coach that studies film, I think you'll just realize that Colorado has you matched or even maybe outmatched at the skill positions. But it's like, man, we're A+ in the trenches and they're C+ at
Right.
best.
Right.
And I
Run the
think
ball down their
ultimately
throats.
just run the ball, especially anything kind of missed, because the misdirection is the biggest problem. Because in a misdirection play, you need everybody to stay home and then set where they are. Like, I need you to stay home, lock this down, defense, set the edge.
Well, they have
if you're already at a disadvantage, with your size and you don't stay home, that's how I get. It's 3rd and 16. I get a holding call. It's 3rd and 16.
Well, they have a lot of
I
guys.
can run this play because I know I can get you guys out of position.
They have a lot of guys that came from HBCUs, and HBCU, like the SWAC, is one of the worst conferences in FCS. They have guys that played at Alabama, played at Florida State, but didn't play.
Yeah.
They were just on the roster. So, talented, I suppose.
The skill positions, yeah. But the trench position.
Right. But yeah, I got Colorado
25.
I got Colorado coming through the back door. So, I got USC jumping up early and then Colorado getting some late scores to cover whatever the spread is. So,
I can see USC tricking off and maybe creating giving up a turnover early.
Yeah, plus their defense isn't good. Their defense isn't that good. So Colorado has
their defense is never good.
Colorado has opportunity to score. Then you got College Game Day. You got College Game Day going down to Wallace Wade Stadium, and before you make fun of Wallace Wade Stadium, ask Clemson about it.
Yeah.
So Duke hosting Notre Dame. This is my key to the game. Like tapping into my Mr. Logical right here.
Here we go.
Notre Dame cannot let Ohio State beat them twice.
You're talking about just the way that Duke played.
The hangover, the putting everything into that game, the 10 men on the field, like just
2 plays in a row.
Yeah, feeling low and all that. Like, because Duke is going to bring it. Like, I think Notre Dame's going to win. But Duke, this is their first time ever having College Game Day. Their first time ever being relevant enough to have College Game Day.
Yeah, so they played Riley Leonard is looking like looking like a star.
Yeah, looking a little Josh Allenish, you know what I mean? But yeah,
17.
But that's what I'm saying.
A very confident basketball player. He has that swag and that bravado that you need. But I think Sam Hartman has that experience. And if you put 11 men on the field, maybe they beat Ohio State. But like I said, definitely it was a better game. I think Hartman, I feel for Marcus Freeman. They kept putting a camera on the coach. I was watching the game and
support black coaches.
I just was watching. I was like, yo, this might be a thing. I mean, I think Sam Hartman got to tighten up his sleeves, though. I'm gonna say that again. I want him with Sammy sleeves, nor Sam Bradford.
Well,
stuff.
I think this game is going to look a lot like the Ohio State game. Where like points are going to be hard to come by. Duke is 5th in the nation defensive yards per play. Notre Dame is number 6. But this is the problem. Outside of Clemson, Duke has played UConn, Northwestern, and Lafayette. So
smart scheduling.
It is, so yeah, I got Notre Dame, Duke's one of those teams, what is it? Good at everything, master of none or something like that.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah,
Yeah, that's Duke. That's Duke.
that's
They're
how they
solid.
described us crew chiefs back in the day.
Yeah, they're solid all the way around. They won't beat themselves, but they aren't going to necessarily take the game either. Because looking back at that Clemson game, Clemson probably should have won that game by double digits. Like
People
there was
say that, but I watched that game.
there was a lot of red zone fumbling. There was a muffed punt that put
But
Duke at the 13.
that fumbling was a byproduct of Duke's physicality. I think it was a physical game, and physical games tend to look like that because what you have is when you're physical like that, when you're physical up front, you have you have to battle through. And what happened was on some of those possessions with those turnovers, it simply was because Duke was more physical as causing a turnover. It wasn't like they got like errant overthrows for interceptions, just kind of out of nowhere, a bunch of tip passes for interceptions. For instance, like the Detroit, NFL, Detroit, Kansas City. You had Kadarius Toney just dropping wide open passes. One of them got dropped right in the hands of Branch that he returned for a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
Even with that drop off his hands that got returned for a pick six, if he catches the ball in that fourth quarter drive, Kansas City's rolling because that was like an 18 to 20 yard catch there. Mm-hmm. They're rolling. They're probably kicking a field goal. They're going to win because those turnovers and the deflections were kind of fluky. Duke was just out. Duke got a couple of those fumbles off of just putting the helmet on the ball. That was the one where Klubnik chased down the safety who picked it up. That's because the defensive lineman that came through put his helmet on the ball, and he was more physical in the goal line. And then, of course, when they were trying to pull it, the mesh points. But I just think Duke was a very physical team that game. But if they haven't had another test since then, then this Notre Dame thing's going to be tough because Notre Dame's coming off of probably playing the most 5 stars in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and then you got Tennessee trying to get revenge on South Carolina, because South Carolina ended their playoff chances last year. Hendon Hooker got hurt, going back to kneeling, blackout style. So, I expect Tennessee to win, but don't be surprised if it's a close game. But where I got my eyes, I got to figure out what they call it these days. I'm going to Google it right now, actually. But I still refer to it as the Courier Dome, because Clemson is going. Yeah, Clemson's going up there. Syracuse is still undefeated. It's the JMA Wireless Dome. There you go. The JMA Wireless Dome. But so Syracuse and Clemson. Remember now, Syracuse beat Clemson in a year where Clemson won the national title just a few years ago. Then the last 2 years, the final scores of these games, Clemson won both of them.
Excuse me.
Clemson won both of them. But the final scores, 17-14 and 27-21. So last year, Syracuse was actually up in Death Valley, 21-10 in the third quarter. They made the switch. They took DJ out. That was the end. Cade Klubnik made his debut, brought him back. And, like Twitter was buzzing after that game about how the refs carried Clemson down the field and, got them out of there. So Syracuse is not afraid of Clemson is the point. Dino Babers is not, support black coaches, is not afraid of Clemson. I think Clemson wins, but I wouldn't be shocked to see another close game.
The thing about Clemson, like I said, I like what they have. I like the talent that they get. Like I said, they're one of the recruiting, as far as recruiting, the top 1 or 2 teams in the ACC every year, especially since they were winning national championships. I think Dabo Swinney coming out talking about, we don't use the NIL, we use the portal, just trying to hold on to this archaic era of the coach being.
Well, he said that they use. He said they use God's
name,
liken
him, image and likeness. So he's trying to hold on to this antiquated, ideology of the coach and the university and the coach, they're the team, and yada yada yada. And I think that can hurt him because Spencer Rattler, a guy who's from Arizona, went to Oklahoma, transferred to South Carolina. I think this is a year that he might be able to come out and maybe be a potential NFL draft pick. I'm not sure if that Netflix documentary is still hurting him. Beamer is going to have to really play to win, not play to be competitive, not play to be good, not play to be, not play to say we worked hard, which is a mindset thing. So they played Georgia tough, and they can translate that same energy that they put in the Georgia game and extrapolate that over to this Clemson game. I think it'd be good. Battle of the Carolinas. You probably got a lot of guys who known each other for years. As far as recruiting, probably guys that are on the same team or rival high schools or different districts or different camps and things of that nature. So I think it'll be an interesting game. I think that these kind of interstate rivalries are they're kind of the bread and butter of college football. And I hope for a good game. I'll go with Clemson just because of recent history of their ability to close down games and win. Whereas South Carolina seems to have a bit of we're happy to be here and be competitive.
Well, I'm looking forward to next week. Like I said, before we get out of here, I'm looking forward to next week. Here are a few games that I'm looking forward to next week. So you got, depending on what happens with Kentucky and Florida, if Kentucky does pull it out, they go between the hedges next week playing Georgia. So that could be an early SEC East title game. You got Red River, like I said.
Kentucky in a title game. How dope is that?
Yeah. You got
football needs it.
You got my Terps going to Columbus next week. Florida State coming off the bye to beat up on Virginia Tech next week. I love that. If LSU can survive Ole Miss, which I think they will, they're a 2.5-point favorite. I'm with Ole Miss. I'm stuck in. You got to prove it to me mode. They got to win some of these games for me to take them seriously. That's why I didn't even really talk about it much. But if LSU gets out of that game and Missouri can survive Vanderbilt, you got 2 undefeateds meeting in Columbia, Missouri next week. LSU at Missouri.
They're not 2 undefeated.
LSU's
not undefeated.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. My bad. They lost to my team. How about that?
Yeah, so right.
Yeah. Sure. Then you got my guys leaving the Palouse. Saying Cam Ward taking it on the road to Los Angeles to play against UCLA and Dante Moore. Syracuse.
Dante Moore looks good. I know we had the guy that commented on our Facebook page. Shout out to all the people who like to comment, subscribe. And I've never said anything negative about Dante Moore. And you were the first person to put me on. Like you said, they found a freshman phenomenon, Dante Moore. They're just playing for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it was awesome.
First I've heard of him.
It was awesome because he was supposed to go to Oregon.
Yeah, so I hope that guy, keeps listening to Sports Reports as ordered. 2 vets, no gimmicks. I like what UCLA did. Like I said, that drive when they got the 4th, they were like 4th and 27 from the 2 or 3 yard line, and 4 plays later they were in the end zone. That's a talent move. You can be up and down all game long. So I like what UCLA is doing there, and I think California is just it's a hotbed for high school football talent. Yeah. They just have to figure out how to keep that talent in because there's a lot of teams taking California players. Utah's loaded with them. Arizona's loaded with them. Texas is getting a lot of them. So
if Syracuse can beat Clemson, they set up a showdown at North Carolina next week. It's just the schedule is just, in the game that only I care about. Michigan going to Minnesota for the little brown jug.
I used to love that on NCAA. Like I had a friend of mine we used to play. We would play the rivalry games.
Yeah, and they don't play every year now. So you got to take it when you can.
Most trophies.
You got to take it when you can. You got Notre Dame at Louisville next week. So you got I mean, another game that only I care about, Baylor and Texas Tech. So next week is going to be a great week of college football. This week I think has
this
some
week. But
this game.
this week we're gonna have some surprises
Yeah,
because it doesn't look
there's some
like
stuff.
like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
It's like 2 weeks ago we didn't have anything. We were kind of waiting
it's
on
bubbling
this week, but then 2 weeks ago we got the Colorado State. Like I said, I'm watching it at 2:00 in the morning. It's 1:00 in the morning for you. So I think college football is in a great place. I know a lot of coaches are, seemingly taking a lot of shots at the NIL and the money and the transfer
They're
portal.
just mad they're not
But
in control anymore.
if they all take a step back and look and say, we are really putting a top-notch product on the field. These games have been good. These have been some good games.
This is
Georgia,
like,
South
when's the
Carolina
last
was a
time?
good game. Alabama losing to Texas is a good game with the top recruit.
When's the last time? Unless you think, like you being everybody, unless y'all think that Georgia is going to just win 3 in a row. When's the last time this many teams was this relevant at this point of the season to where we were sitting here like, who's going to win the national title?
You can get 10 hardcore college football fans and 10 hardcore college football pundits. I mean, I'm talking about television journalists, and you put the 20 of them in the room, and you would probably get 20 vastly different Final Four college footballs. And that's the thing, is like some years you just have, look, these teams are rolling. Clemson with Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence is beating the hell out of everybody. And then you had Alabama. They're like, okay, they're on a collision course. Ohio State with Cordell Jones and, or like Braxton Miller and all these other guys. You're just like, oh, these guys are just head and shoulders above everyone else. Back in the day with USC, with Reggie Bush and Lindell White and Texas, you knew they were on a crash course, especially when it was like they only picked 2 teams. Now with these 4, you never know. You never know what could happen. Oklahoma is a big enough name. Can they run the table? Texas, with their win over Alabama, can Alabama turn it around to then make that Texas win look even better? So when the dust finally settles, it's like, oh,
this would be the perfect year for a 12 team.
Exactly, and this is why it's so juicy to have the only the 4 teams, because I think LSU getting slapped around by Florida State in that game, they could turn it around. Granted, they got to go through the gauntlet that is the SEC, but you have a team like Michigan. Their head coach is suspended for 3 games. We didn't even talk about it. They didn't miss a beat. Ohio State, Ryan Day called now Lou Holtz, dyeing his beard, all kinds of crazy stuff, and they're still getting in action. So, like, I think this is one of those years where, if you are a college football fan, this year right now is definitely different than past couple of years. Like I said, I'm excited, and like I said, I'm getting more into college football as far as like the nuance and the minutia and everything, because doing this podcast and the conversation with you, and then even if we didn't have this podcast, Deion being on Colorado is enough to be like, oh, this is different. This is a different brand. Especially if he knocks off one of these big teams out west.
Look,
it can get crazy. And
I'm not saying that it's impossible. Like, like I said, USC defense, they played against Arizona State's backups last week and still gave up 28 points. So,
like USC twice last year with Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams was on his way to win the Heisman and end up winning, and they lost in the Pac-12 championship because he tweaked the hamstring or something and couldn't run as much. Stayed in the game, but a couple of timely interceptions in cover 2 coverage, so it's like, anything can happen, and this is a good thing. The NFL is always like that. Anything can happen in the NFL. Detroit beating Kansas City opening night because they're so evenly matched. With the college football, anything can happen, and it can be simply because this dude that used to coach at Jackson State is now coaching at Colorado, and TCU loses, stuff like that.
I put it like this, I'll close it like this. If there was no transfer portal, then in NIL, then Keon Coleman instead of catching that pass against Clemson in overtime last week, he'd be stuck in East Lansing, Michigan. You know what I'm saying? Just like that. And I'm not going to keep you guys stuck. You know, we're going to be back at you next week. You know, we're going to come back, see how we did with our picks. Hopefully these upsets went through. You know, we'll see what happens. But America, we love you. Peace.